All right.
Hey there.
Welcome back for episode 2 of the Trinisphere. Today we are going to be talking about identifying psychographic profiles in the wild and how to use that to your advantage. I am Adam, the resident Johnny, joined by my everlasting co-host Shannon.
I'm the Timmy. What's up?
And this guy.
I didn't get a glorious intro of like the most beautiful man out of the three.
Oh, do you want to look at this face? Look at this face.
Apologies accepted. Apologies accepted.
Okay, so we've got Ryan, our Spike, here as well. We are brought to you in part by tappedout.net, best site for deck building on the internet. Check it out. Check out our profiles and our decks that we have out there. And also, we are announcing our first giveaway from episode 1. That's right.
I'm a subscriber.
You're a subscriber?
Yeah.
Man, you know what? You didn't get it. You didn't get it.
What?
You didn't.
Did you already pick?
I did.
Oh, dang.
It was BM Patrol. So BM Patrol, we will be reaching out to you.
Yeah, thanks for
to
subbing.
get your address. And yes, thank you for subbing.
We as in he. I don't care about you that much, honestly.
Wow. This guy.
BM Patrol.
Stay
on patrol.
The most followers still, probably.
Yeah.
Everyone's
They're flocking to you. They love the abuse.
This guy's like, I'm a masochist. Just keep it coming.
I'm going to win
All
his
right.
affection.
So for today, like I said, we're going to be talking about identifying the different psychographic profiles in the wild and how to use that to your advantage. But before we get into that, let's recap so that we can use it to this discussion what the motivations are behind the psychographic profiles in order to identify them. So, Spike, we'll start with you. What were the key motivations behind a Spike? What are the key factors?
I mean, quick recap on what we talked about last week. Basically, Spikes just want to win through playing skill, like just plain and simple. Like
Yep.
I want to best my opponents in any possible way of the game, whether it be through card draw, whether it be through edict effects, whatever it may be. I just want to win,
Yep.
and I want to do it via my ability, not them misplaying. Misplays are just a hiccup for me, but I want to get there on my behalf. And then another big thing was earning respect through my plays. Like I want everyone around the table to be like, oh, he just bested us. Like they may not want to admit it to themselves, they may not want to admit it to me, but at the end of the day, when they go home, they're like, I just got beat fair and square. Like he just outplayed us.
So to do that, I feel like you have to get good.
Dang.
If-
Shade throwing is a part of Johnny's strategy.
I feel like I have to just put you guys in your place consistently. And
Yeah?
yeah.
Yeah, if you don't, I guess we get rowdy.
I mean, you guys are getting rowdy right now.
All right. So, Timmy, why don't you give us a recap of what it is that you're looking for in the game in a few words.
My big motivation, as obviously as a Timmy, is the fun that comes from playing with a bunch of people and the big game plays, the memorable events. So I'm usually looking. My ideal night of EDH will be along the lines of a giant blowout, going huge, going wide, that kind of thing. So,
Yep.
If I'm not doing that, then I'm not really having that great of a time. Granted, also a lot of being a Timmy is interacting with other players, so you get a lot of revenge plays. Remembering when somebody screwed you and getting them back next game, that kind of stuff. So,
When you say interact with other players, do you mean like high fives and handshakes? Finger guns are still an interaction. I mean, I don't know. Is that if you interact with them physically, psychologically? What are you talking about?
all of it, top down, back and forth. Anyways,
Head and shoulders, knees and toes. Got it.
Got it.
But anyways, yeah. So the main way I enjoy, the way I want to earn respect in my play group is being like notorious for having these decks that get really out of hand. So that's the main way that I search for the outcome with my deck building.
What about you?
So
The
mine.
stereotypical way of whatever. Go ahead.
So my way of earning respect is basically out of the cleverness and design behind the deck build. I'm not necessarily concerned with winning or dominating the game like these guys are, so much as when I go to build decks, and what I like people to know me for is for kind of creativity and clever design and things like that. And as far as winning, I want to win under my own conditions. So I like to use a lot of like alt win cons or just cute interactions, Rube Goldberg type scenarios. Combo generally speaking. So with that recap of what we want out of the way, let's talk very quickly about how you identify these people in the wild. So, Shannon, how do you identify a Johnny, for example?
Well,
sit down like first few turns, like how like you can get a pretty good summary of each person's arc or a psychograph profile just by playing with them for just a small amount of time. I think so. Like, what do you think is a Johnny? Like,
my big thing though is like you can. I mean, I think we have a lot of things in common in Magic. We all play the same game, so a lot of like how we play is kind of on a scale. Some of us are like far on the right and far on the left kind of thing. And I've noticed that Timmy's and Johnny's kind of share this whole thing where it's very obvious they're trying to set something up.
Yeah,
they're working towards a goal, and it's a little slow to develop. Johnny's obviously a little stranger because when you see a card and you have no idea why it's in that deck, that's usually the sign that Johnny is setting up the Rube. That's part one of a Rube Goldberg mission. So you're like, you sit there, you read a card, and you're like, I have no idea why he plays this card. That's a warning sign that you need to keep an eye on that card because that's going to come up probably big a little bit later on. It's going to do something you didn't realize it did. And then it's going to go south from there.
Or it's just a warning sign that you don't know what oubliette does, and it's
amazing. Is that how you pronounce that card? I've been wondering this.
I
whole
believe
time.
so. Yeah.
But
So what about a fellow Timmy? How do you
fellow Timmy?
How do you pick out a fellow Timmy?
It's usually pretty obvious that they're playing their cards on the table. They're not really holding anything back, and they're a little more emotional. So you can kind of like poke them, and they'll want to poke you back. They may get a little drawn into the emotional aspect of the game, so they want to, instead of noticing that Johnny assembling the Rube Goldberg machine, they're more worried about that time that you poke them for damage. They want to get you back. They're focused on that kind of thing. So they're usually a little more drawn in to what's happening right now and not really seeing the big picture. That's kind of a Timmy thing. They're also, interacting a lot more with the other people in the pod, socially speaking.
So what about Spikes? You identifying Spikes?
Spikes, they're a little hard to read, but usually they.
I think that's the first sign.
And they're usually playing like strictly decent cards. They're not really like synergistic. They're all like staples. When you think of the staples of a color, you're going to see them come up in a Spike decks consistently. Also, you'll know a Spike when they shift aggro focus mid-game because they realize threats are changing. They're always responding to the threat, which is why I love playing with Spikes because I can always rely on them to be like, hey, that guy's getting out of hand. Like, we need to stop this tit-for-tat game we're playing and stop that stuff from going out of control.
Absolutely.
I always enjoy. So they're more like, obviously, type play. You rarely see them make a play that you question. They always make the one you're like, yeah, I probably would have done that, had I thought about it kind of thing.
So Ryan, same questions basically. Like, how are you identifying a Johnny? I know that before the show, you had mentioned something that was kind of an overall that I wanted to address. Like how you can start picking people out even before they play their lands.
Yeah. So basically, I came up with this, and I sat down, and this is a throwback to like one of our first episodes we ever did.
Yeah.
We talked about identifying profiles, what you are, being okay with it. Sitting down at a table before anyone's even drawn a hand, you pretty much reveal your generals, right?
Right.
Yeah. You can sit down at a table and be like, chances are that Maelstrom Wanderer is either a Spike or a Timmy. Either he's playing giant fatties or he's going into time walks. Exactly. So then, and the same thing goes if you see an Arkham Daxon, it's a Spike or a Johnny.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then, and if you sit down, and you see a Shroom. Chances are it's probably a Spike. Like you got.
I've never seen a fair Shroom.
Could be that Sphinx Tribal.
I guess it's possible now.
Okay, let's be
never
honest.
seen it before.
But what I'm trying to say is like you look down, you see an Omnath Locus of Rage. Yeah. Chances are this is a Timmy.
That's just pretty Timmy.
There's the big ones that can be taken in in all different directions. Like
well, I think like Zur is a good.
Thank you.
Like Zur can be the busted Doomsday deck. It could be
Astral
a
Slide.
Weird combo.
Slide.
Exactly. Astral Slidey.
I was trying to work on a cycling one.
Or it could be like a Voltron Timmy. Like I'm just gonna build the giant thing that's gonna smash Fate. So like. There are some that it's a little bit more difficult to. So it's a good indicating factor. Like,
I wouldn't say it's resolute, but
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's
but
probably
no,
an
it's definitely. I mean, 50-50, you'll probably be right. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah,
Like, you can
fair
sit. I mean,
enough.
like, it's one of the two, and then you start like after the first couple turns, you're like, I already know where this is going because you already took that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That assessment. But other than that, other than the blanket statement, looking at Johnny's, I look and I see cards they play, and it has little to no impact on the game. I'm like, let's be honest. If you guys are putting,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. There's been the constant banter between me and Adam is, what does that card do? I'm not reading it. Don't summarize. I don't care about. I don't care about the paragraph.
What does it do?
Basically,
right now?
it's an O-ring on an artifact. Okay, I don't care about the 300 words. All right. But and then the other thing is, like, if you see that card, if it has little to no impact by itself, chances are it's not going to be a 2-card combo. If it's a 2-card combo, you've probably already seen it. So if you see one of those big name cards like I don't even know, Palancron, yeah, if you see Palancron or Deadeye, you're just all right. You're like, okay, probably a Johnny.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the other thing is, I would say for looking for Johnnies is, I know we just talked about this, but definitely keep an eye out for specific generals. There are generals out there that just combo way better than most.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, if you've got that EDH aspect, or if you're looking at the EDH aspect, you sit down and you see an Arkham Dex, and at least think that it's going to be a combo deck. Don't at least have that in mind. Don't stray away and be like, oh no, I've seen him play this 100 times. He could have got new cards. It could be whatever.
Yeah.
Moving on from Johnny's, we'll move on to Timmy's. Every time I sit down with Timmy, I think I've always noticed it's always a slower start. I feel like they're always, you know,
there's a build up.
No Timmy wants to play 1-drops and 2-drops in EDH. Like, they just don't do that.
Yeah, and I usually see a lot of, like, you see them play their first few lands. You see them play the first few lands, and you see like a ramp spell into maybe another ramp spell into like a dude. But like the first, I would say, first 1 to 6 turns for Timmy's don't do anything to the ramp. I think it's ramp and like really
ramp card draw thing, setting up like, you know, Rites of Flourishing or whatever, like kind
some
of things.
Some of the value engines.
And then the other thing about Timmy's that I've noticed is that this is a personal opinion, but I feel like I've compiled this, is that a lot of Timmy's like to show a lot of interest in what's going on in other people's games.
Sure.
And this kind of falls back into my personal opinion towards Spikes as well, because I feel this way. But like I've noticed, especially with Shannon and other Timmy's in our playgroup, is they'll generally like, oh, what are you doing? What does that do? Or like they'll be involved in other people's games. Not only is
they
that
want to see kind of like the decks evolve,
but they also want it's also an edge, because you knowing more information about what they're doing, you know, this and that kind of gives you that like insight.
Yep.
That kind of falls back onto what I think about Spikes and how you can like identify them is by one. I think they're a little bit quieter. I think they kind of stay to themselves unless it's necessary to like speak up or act.
Yeah.
We have a few in our group. I would say that I'm a little more vocal sometimes, but a lot of times I will just sit back and watch the game unfold.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is, especially when a Spike's in the zone and they're focused, they're gonna slow down. They're gonna take their time with their plays. They're going to watch everything moving carefully. And like Shannon said, you know, the focus will change here and there. Yeah. But the thing is that if they're quiet, it's probably because they're just trying to calculate what they need to do, turn in, turn out. The other thing too that I think identifies a Spike is their mannerisms. I feel like just the way they act kind of like just give it off. Like outside of gameplay, like you guys already hit, or you had a bunch of good ones. It was like, you know, what the cards they play, this and that. Like if you see a lot of like early game plays, that's a big thing. But just the mannerisms alone, like I know I'm guilty of it. I've done it in the past. I've tried to stray away from it because I feel like it's really rude. But a lot of our Spike players will be like, okay, that's fine. Sure. Okay, go ahead. Or like you'll play a Cultivate on turn 3 while Timmy plays his Cultivate on turn 3. Spike literally be like, I don't care. Right. They probably won't even acknowledge that you did it. They'll be like, are you done yet?
Yeah. Right.
Like as rough as that can be, that's kind of a good defining factor of Spike.
It's basically like you have an ongoing tabulation of how the game is progressing, and that doesn't really affect your game plan.
Not
so
at all.
Like, okay, that's fine. Go.
Yeah. If you're gonna
doesn't affect my plays at all next turn.
Hard pass. Yeah. What about you?
So for me, starting with identifying other Johnnies, I look for 2 things usually.
Cards that you play in your decks. Bad cards you play in your decks. You look for bad cards.
I look for only bad cards.
10 cent ramps.
As long as they play something like Regeneration. Are you familiar with the enchantment from Alpha?
No.
Probably not.
Yeah. No, nobody would ever play that card. But the point being, I look for 2 sets of cards. I look for known combo pieces, your Palancrons, your Deadeyes, things like that. Because you could have like kind of the spiked Johnny hybrid where it's like the really good
strong
value
combos,
combos, like the 2-card combos. Yeah. So I keep an eye out for those, but then I also keep an eye out for the esoteric cards, like you're saying. Like if somebody pulls out a Cuskin Falls or an Oubliette or like just these weird like off color
Hazazon Tamar.
Hazazon, yeah, exactly. With Talnos's Coffin, I play in it. Yeah, things that people don't really understand how they interact, but probably have some kind of weird rulesy thing that make them do things. So that's what I look for. And if I find that, then I know I'm at least dealing with somebody who leans a little bit into Johnny at the very least. Spikes, I'm usually looking at if I'm 3 or 4 turns into the game and I have 0 questions about any of the cards that were played, and I can literally type in their commander into EDH Rec
just
and
roll down
get
the list.
all of the cards I've seen so far,
Roll down the list.
that's a spike.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is we like the net deck.
Yes.
So what you're saying
I'm
is...
saying
how's
that
that feel?
unabashedly.
Oh, I don't care.
I didn't think you did.
I also
Good cards are good.
I also take note of people who actually value curve out, not just ramping or drawing in the first couple turns, but are actually actively doing something and trying to curve out while getting some of that advantage also. Really just getting value out of things. Timmy's I usually pick out based on the setup. Kind of like what you were saying. A Timmy is going to ramp or draw for the first couple turns. If I see Signet, Cultivate, Kadama's Reach,
we want to get to the 7 draws, man.
Right, exactly. You can't hit the 10-drop hard casts without doing that. So that's usually what I'm looking for in Timmy's. And those are fairly reliable, but I mean, I have been kind of drawn off course before where I'll see somebody who does all of that, ramps, but it's really a spike, and they just have a spike with more of a mid-range deck.
Yep.
But the rest of the deck is super scripted and super value, and efficient.
Yeah.
But they just needed to get to that turn
Mid-game.
4, turn 5 mana before they were really firing. So there's a little bit of crossover. All right, so now that we have how you identify people, or at least some of the tips on how we identify people, let's move into the much more interesting question of how we use that to our advantage.
Ooh,
so let's talk archetype at a time. We'll go around. So, Shannon, how do you use the knowledge of the fact that somebody is a Johnny to your benefit? How do you leverage that in your favor?
Yeah. Johnny's is one of the harder ones to kind of use effectively, because Johnnies tend to not have as much interaction as the other archetypes. They tend to kind of stay to their own, but they're usually pretty good team players in that they're usually looking for the long game. They want their board state to develop, so they're usually very willing to try and knock down the king when the king's getting out of hand. So usually you can look to a Johnny who is worried about stacks cards blocking them out of their mechanics too. They're always willing to make deals to destroy cards that are preventing them from progressing their board state. So they're usually when you're trying to get a Johnny to help you out in a situation, you're trying to destroy specific permanents that are stopping both of you, basically negating you from both of you from progressing your board state. And then also, when the king gets kind of way out of hand, you can work with them to try and keep them alive longer and their board state up longer so they can move through their combo. Johnny's is a little harder to use than most, but I find that generally speaking, they're unlike Timmy's. They are much easier to work with when you take kind of emotion out of the equation.
Spike, what are your thoughts? How do you leverage the fact that you know somebody is a Johnny against them or to your benefit, either direction?
When I've identified someone as a Johnny, usually what I do is I actually just don't mess with them that much. To be honest with you, if I've identified them as a Johnny from my playstyle specifically, I look at them and I say, I just kind of keep tabs on them. They're in. You
don't gotta worry about it for 5 turns.
They're in my rearview mirror because I usually don't have to worry about them doing anything to directly affect me in a negative way. Because usually I'm not doing anything that's super effective with the board anyways. if I see a play that I feel like hinders them for a few more turns after they've taken time to build up, I fire it off. Like if they're in an artifact deck and I have a Vandal Blast on 5, I'm just gonna pop it off, knock all the rocks, knock. You know what I'm saying? Like I won't poke them unless I feel like they're getting to the point where they're a few turns away.
Yeah,
sure.
It's kind of like they're a clock that's rolling down, and every occasion you got to knock it back up. To make sure
you got to keep them
zero.
you have to keep them honest. And a lot of times too, though, is like since I'm a very reactive player, and I think a lot of spikes are very reactive players, they can usually disrupt the combo when they go for it if they don't have it already trying to like, truck through it. That's why I'm not gonna lie. If I notice there's a Johnny at my table, there's very large. This is like the first 6 turns. I'm not tapping out.
Right.
Once it gets,
you just want to make sure they don't like, try to win that area.
I have to have an answer for something. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, my way of dealing with Johnnies as another Johnny is to
build a machine faster.
Well, I mean, build the machine faster. Obviously, I mean that's always going to be the goal.
Yeah.
You know, but I try to manage how I disrupt things. So I don't just fire off the Vandal Blast when I have it. I fire off the spells that I need to because I know that they really only need the one extra piece. Yeah. So I hold up the counter spell only for the thing that I know is going to win them the game, and I just hold it in my hand the whole time. So how knowing that I am going to disrupt it when it has to happen.
So how often do you run into a scenario where you're in a pod with another Johnny and a Temmie, and in the same turn that you're holding that counterspell, Temmie beforehand will launch off like a crater hoof?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, you
how
keep
Johnnies
up,
die to other Johnnies,
right? Exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of that definitely, but when I run into a scenario like that, yeah, I mean, my counter spells, because I don't play a ton in my decks. You know, even my mono blue deck, I think I run like 3 or 4. I hold them up for 2 purposes. 1, defend my combo so I can win,
or disrupt theirs.
2, disrupt whatever is going to kill me.
Yeah.
So so if it's another Johnny, or if it's a crater hoof, or if like whatever it is, I hold it up for that. I don't want to just counter other things to like out tempo people or anything like that, because that's not. Yeah. I don't want to get on everybody's bad side, including the Johnny. Like I want you just calm down. You calm down and you do your thing, and I'll stop you when it's time.
That does remind me, like, some of the other ways I use Johnnies to my advantage is actually kind of throwing them under a bus.
Yeah.
Basically, I point out to other players that they have no board state, no blockers, and they're building towards an end goal and trying to divert aggro basically to them.
Yeah.
Be like, do you remember what his deck does? It basically goes infinite on 1 turn. You better, like, you know, send some of those creatures that way. Like, I have blockers, and I'm willing to block. But he's never going to have any blockers.
So now we're getting Shannon's real answer as to how he manipulates other people.
Out of curiosity, were you on the debate team?
Oh, no, never.
Oh, okay.
Never.
Although, based on the way you play Magic, I would just assume that. I don't know. Is that weird?
Oh, because you get into some knockout, drag-out fights? You and me.
I mean, and your power of manipulation. I just assume that.
The manipulator. But anyways,
you should get that tattooed on your back.
Tramp stamp.
Yeah, tramp stamp. The manipulator.
The manipulator.
All right, so moving on from the Johnny, and we'll go in reverse order this time. So, Spike, when you've identified another Spike,
yep.
How do you use that to your advantage? How do you play off of that? The game is afoot.
Honestly, other Spikes.
The most dangerous game.
Honestly, with other Spikes,
I'm just better than them.
I'm
just better than them. That's all I do.
No, it's one of 2 things happens, honestly. Either we kind of look at each other and we just kind of know that we're just kind of like going to be in this game together, and we're just going to kind of truck it out, and then whoever gets there at the end, we'll duke it out, and then we'll outplay each other once we finally get down to the final.
Gentleman's match.
Exactly. We can kind of recognize that pretty early on who the Spikes are.
Slowly working for the 2v2.
So then the other thing is if the Spike doesn't want to play nice, which happens sometimes, you see them like immediately like just go for you. Like they'll
sometimes Spikes literally turn on the other one immediately and like, I gotta kill him first because he's gonna be the other player.
Spikes are like snakes. Either they live in harmony or they eat each other. It's one of
snakes.
But once they're the last 2, if they're the last 2, one of them's gonna eat each other. So like they're literally like snakes. So if their Spikes will start gunning for you. Like I very, very rarely will just dive right into another Spike. Like it just turns into an all-out war. Every play turns into. And I've seen it's happened where it's back and forth. It's like, oh, you killed my dude, I killed your dude, and then it turns into this like really ugly grudge match.
Yeah.
And the other two players are just sitting there like, okay,
Dang.
Yeah.
like that's the dream for everyone else. But I avoid that at all costs. I'm like, calm down. There's other people. Let's just play the game.
I mean, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
So what about you? When, as a Timmy, when you identify a spike at the table, what is your way of dealing with leveraging that to your advantage in general?
Yeah, I've said it like a bunch of times before, but I really enjoy having a spike in my pod because I know that I don't have to worry, unlike a Johnny who may not interact enough to turn the tide of a game, or a Timmy who gets drawn into a blood duel with another person, that the spike will be like, whoa, let's stop. Look at that over there. We need to deal with that kind of thing.
Right.
So they're always kind of like that, nice to have in the back pocket, a player in the group that you can rely on to try and break, a really bad situation.
In his pocket. That's what he said.
Everyone's in my pocket. I've been paying you all, haven't I? You're not getting the paycheck? What? Okay, anyways.
The address must be wrong. I'm sorry, I don't accept Bitcoin.
What? Oh my gosh, hold on, let me check. Oh, it's a lot more now. But anyways, once you identify like a spike in the group, you just got to know that they're going to disrupt a ton of your plays.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to play the whole Munchkin game. You don't want to be the first one to get in there. You want to be the second one. It's kind of probably what Johnny's need to do too, is you kind of wait for them to focus in on the big threat and try and swoop in kind of under the slightly under.
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
You're not hitting your strongest plays right off the bat. You're hitting like your medium plays, and you're trying to get somebody else to absorb most of the aggro from the spike. It's a tough matchup because they run a ton of interactions, so you can expect any of your strong combos or synergies to get blown up pretty easily. So you try to kind of want to turn the whole group on them in a long run,
right?
Because they'll usually build up consistent advantage because they'll have decent cards that even if they're countered or destroyed, they still generate advantage. So you kind of want to like turn the game into like a 2v1, 3v1 in the long run as it becomes apparent that you're all top decking and they have a void stick.
Absolutely. For me, one of the things that you said rang very true for me is appealing to their sense of threat assessment.
Yeah.
So like if something is coming at you from a third player, but it's really big and they know that it's going to come at them, you'd be like, that's kind of going to be a problem for you next. So like, and sometimes you can manipulate them into shifting focus.
You guys are going to be great tips. Next one, next game night, I'm wearing sunglasses and earbuds.
So that's definitely the first way that I try to. But I also try to pit them against each other. Yeah. Because there's always going to be that point where each spike is looking for what the threat is, and if you can kind of lean them both at each other, then they might start to also get a little emotional and or salty depending on the plays. And so if you can keep that grudge match rolling, that's pretty beneficial.
I hate it when someone makes a reasonable play and then the first instinct is
I hate you now.
No. Get that instead. That's a way better target. Like that's gonna snowball. It's got like 6 turns. He only has 1 card in hand, but
9 turns from now that'll win the game.
But like, but it's like when their target's very valid and it's just an immediate deflection, and it's like I said nothing. I kept my mouth shut, but my soul ring got blown up. Cool.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, my psychosis crawler chugging along.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing that I do with spikes is, if I have a backup plan in hand, I will do this sometimes. If I have a backup plan for my combo already in hand, I'll kind of play into the removal that I know that they have and that they're kind of wanting to use.
Yeah.
To make them have it or force their hand into using it if I know that they have it. Because that way I at least get it out of their hand and then can have my backup plan out, hoping that they don't top deck things to fix it in the meantime. So I'll kind of try to force my position a little bit if I can draw out the hate so that I can set up for the next turn. Yeah. Because I think that because the threat assessment thing is very real, where they're looking at my board and they're like, "Meh, you're not an issue yet. Meh, you're not an issue yet." Well, all right. Is that enough of an issue? Is that enough of an issue? Oh, it is. Good. Okay, now I'm going to continue on it. You know, so I try to use that to my advantage. All right. So now the Timmy.
So you're a tease.
I don't know how he got that, but he has weird relationships.
You like to poke the bear.
I mean, I like to make sure that people are thinking the way that I want them to think.
Yeah. You guys should just be lovers or something. Master debater, master...
What did you call it?
That's right. You like that?
All right, so moving on to Timmy. So from a Spike perspective, when you know that you have a Timmy at the table, which I think that Spike is actually one of the harder ones to identify sometimes, because they can kind of like...
meld into other ones.
Right, like you can have what looks like a very Johnny or Timmy commander and set up at first, and then you realize what you're dealing with. You know, so I think Timmys and Johnnies are a little more easy to identify. So when you know that you've got your eyes on a Timmy, what is it that you're trying to do to use that, to leverage that?
I don't like messing with Timmys early on because
Yeah.
they'll hold it against you for the rest of the game.
And then next game, and then next week.
And so I honestly I am very hands off. I'm actually almost more hands off with Timmys than I am with any of the other two archetypes or the other archetypes,
right.
because I don't like it. That's really poking the bear. Like, you're really asking for
They
trouble.
will bring up that ancient grudge.
Yeah. Oh, making me weak in the knees. So I honestly I don't like messing with Timmys. If anything, I actually like to make Timmys my teammates.
Yeah.
Because those big giant plays that come down late that can kill me in one turn usually avoid me. I'm like, I'm kind of
right.
Timmys are my favorite teammates, like hands down. Like they're usually the most reasonable too, because Johnnies are typically focused.
Yeah, we're doing our own thing. We're not. Yeah,
like, you don't really need a teammate to win the game. Timmys would prefer a Spike. It's actually because, like, we kind of go in tandem, because they prefer me to interact with things they don't really want to while they do their big stuff, and I don't want their big...
You have all the removal, you play all the giant creatures.
Yeah.
I got it.
But it does come down to it sometimes where, like, and this is part of the reason why I also hate Timmy so much, is where you'll build that relationship, you'll build that rapport, but the second you just, like, blink, it's like, I'm gonna kill you. Because it's true, and I understand why. Because what happens is they have to take that. That's called slipping under the radar. Like, they have to kill me right there, because they know that if they go kill them, I'm gonna win the next turn. Yeah. And so I can't be super hateful, but I've learned when playing with Timmys, always have a contingency plan. Right. You have to have an answer for their big plays, like whether it's a counter spell, whether it's an interactive spell that, like, unsummon, or something to deal with their big stuff.
I mean, when they gen wave with an Omnath out, and they hit 10 lands and a Fervor, everybody's dying. Like, let's just get so like, it can turn on everybody real quick. I agree with you.
And I also like to have very symmetrical. Like, personally, I put these in my decks almost just for Timmys. I like to have symmetrical effects that kind of prevent me from losing in those exact scenarios. Like, those big Jin waves, those big, like, I've seen people go Maelstrom Wonder into win because of just the combination of cards they hit. So I always want something in my pocket that says if they're coming at me, I have an answer.
Right. Absolutely. So what about you? When you find a fellow Timmy at the table, you guys are both trying to go
I'm like
tall,
yes.
wide, everything.
Yes. So yeah, Timmy's like he was mentioning early on, basically don't become the target. They're looking. So one of the things about Timmy's, they have a little bit of trouble threat assessing, because the style of play, they want to have a good time. They don't want to just dumpster one person right off the bat. Yeah. So generally when Timmy's are playing, they're like rolling dice to target people. Like, I don't know who to attack. I'm going to roll a dice.
Don't roll dice for damage.
Says the Val
Make
Smasher.
your own
Says
decisions,
the Val
people.
Smasher guy.
Well, look, I mean, if the card tells you to do it, do it. But if you're attacking, don't do that. Like, who am I going to attack? Well, I'll roll a die. No. Well, have some conviction.
Just like they're easy
true conviction.
Just like they're easy to take offense to, like, people doing things to them, they also don't want to, like, immediately offend somebody. So early on, they're very reluctant to attack. Yeah. They roll die. They don't want to take responsibility. But then as soon as you poke them, as soon as you're like, oh, I have a spell and it needs to target something, so I'm going to blow that up. And they're like, oh, it's on. Now they have a goal in the game, and that is to murder that person. Now they can focus all their aggro at a single person, and that person gets locked in a blood duel for the rest of the game.
Which is funny that you say that. I've never I haven't taken notice to that happening specifically with Timmy's before, but now that you say it in relation to that profile, I'm like, yeah, they are the ones who do that.
Yeah, they get zoned in on these 1v1s. They may not be interested in winning the game, but they're interested in sending that message that says, hey, next time, never blow up my soul ring. I'm going to do what it takes to kill you now. So they and it's all about that, the atmosphere of the game, the social aspect. Right. So they don't like their game becoming miserable due to stacks or their things getting blown up. They take offense to them losing the components that they work hard to get.
Counterspells seem to be particularly offensive to Timmy's.
There's nothing more frustrating than working real hard to do something and you're like, all right, I'm gonna do it, guys. Watch. Oh, it didn't happen. You guys didn't even get to see what it did. It get killed in the crib so fast. I didn't even get to enjoy all my token.
Yeah,
I've never rather a board wipe just so you could see all the things that died.
Yeah,
my favorite and least favorite and most favorite thing to happen in Magic every single time is when I react to something and someone goes, I was gonna win from that, and I'm like, well, I know. Why do you stop me from winning?
Yeah,
the game will be over.
Yeah, right. I won't win.
Somehow my favorite and least favorite thing happened.
The death knell of the Timmy is like, I would have won next turn. I would have won next turn. Had you not done that? Well, that's exactly why.
I'm sorry I countered your gym for 40.
Isn't that just the death knell of the Magic player?
Probably, yeah.
I mean,
the salty Magic player.
Right.
I had it. Look at my next 7 draws. Right. Oh, there it is. That was the win con. 6 cards down.
Had you cast Wheel of Fortune last turn, I would have won.
But I had a different deck and a different set of...
Yeah.
Anyways. Timmy, how do you deal? I mean,
Johnny,
Johnny, how do you deal with Timmy?
How do I deal with Timmy?
There you go.
So... I think the first thing that I do is, if I have an answer for what they have going on, I try to allow them to overcommit. Because they have a tendency to do so. Like, look at all the cool things that I had. We're going to put them all out. I ramped up to 85.
All my toys.
I'm going to play them all. And so if I have a board wipe or a Cyclonic Rift, then I'm just sitting on waiting for whenever it needs to be used. And I'm like...
There probably is no greater thing than watching a Timmy deflate after you rift their 90 cards on the table.
The Rift,
just like, oh.
The Rift feels so good for whoever's casting it and so bad for everyone else.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I definitely let them overcommit because I know that there's a tendency to do so. But I also play up the fact that they're a threat because they're less in hand than they are on board.
Yeah.
They
want to show you what's
exactly.
going on.
They tend to have a strong board presence. And so at the very least, they usually look more impactful than they even necessarily are. Mm-hmm. And so you can kind of convince people that they're the threat just because look at all the permanents they have. They might all be 1/1s that they have no way to buff or anything.
Yeah.
But look at all the permanents. That person's going to kill you when they cast a Crater Hoof. They don't even have one in their deck.
What's Crater Hoof?
I actually see a lot of times where Timmy's will go ramp, and then you'll be like, something's coming down, and then for another 6 turns, there's drawing cards.
Right.
Because they just didn't have stuff to do.
But the first thing he goes like, look how many lands he has. Somebody killed that guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that rolls right into you being like, that guy's got... He's literally going to play something huge next turn.
Yeah.
So I mean, my summary of how to deal with both a Spike and a Timmy is I'm going to be Wormtongue.
Yeah, you're going to whisper sweet nothings into their ears?
Into everybody else's ears about them.
I'm going to
try to turn everybody else against. So it's like, no, that person's... Are you seeing what's going on over there? Yeah. Did you see that play?
Yeah.
So that I'm just
you're a gossip queen.
Derpy, draw, derpy,
I
win.
Me.
Sorry, oops, I win.
Don't mind this card that doesn't appear to do anything. Deal with the big value creature.
Yeah, I try to deflect. Is basically what it is. I mean, deflect, manipulate. I mean, synonymous to a certain degree here. But I try to deflect attention away from me and more attention to what those players are capable of and what they have going on. so that hopefully other people will take them out or just interact with them so that it gives me more time or so that they waste their resources. You know, oh, I'm all out of removal spells because I took care of that and that and that. And I hear that sometimes and I'm like, yes, that played exactly how, you know, like, no, sorry, I don't have an 18th piece of removal, you know? Yeah. So that's what I try to do in general as a summary.
That reminds me, like, as a Timmy, sometimes, like, generally want everyone to have a good time playing the game. Don't like one person to leave the game kind of pissed off because their game didn't play out the same way. So what I'm looking for is kind of like a tit for tat in a positive manner. Like, I look for players who blatantly had an opportunity to mess me up, but they made like a tougher decision and chose maybe the right thing, even though it didn't seem like the right thing at the time. And then I usually remember that, and I'm like, hey, you know, thanks for dealing with a thing that was screwing me up, or that was going to barrel out of hand, even though I've been hitting you, incidentally. And so I remember that, and so next time when it comes down to it, I like make maybe a wrong decision. Maybe I don't target them. I target the other player because I'm like trying to pay them back. So it's kind of like owing people favors kind of thing too, which is kind of a leans into the whole
tough thing to
aspect.
balance.
Yeah,
because when you're like, they're really the threat, but they kind of help me out.
I mean, there's games that I've thrown that I'm just like, hey man, you remember the time you got me? I get you back. You know, like, I will blatantly just kill that player who's about to kill you, kind of thing. So for me, it's always like I want everyone to leave having had a good time. If somebody leaves pissed off that something went wrong, then it kind of like leaves a black mark for the whole EDH in general. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, closing thoughts from the Spike.
I want people to leave with black spots.
I know you do. I know.
You guys push.
Salt counter.
You guys push me so hard sometimes to tilt, and sometimes it works, and a lot of times it doesn't. I just sit there quietly, just planning my rage.
You know what? I take from Spikes that you do want that black spot on people's hearts. It's almost like you would be willing to do something like decimate somebody for all 4 targets.
Oh, all 4
Only
targets.
if they were asked for it.
Only if they asked for it.
Hey,
if they go turn one Soul Ring into land tax into I don't even know, like something.
It's gotta be like Sylvan Library
Sylvan
Library, like all the most powerful value cards.
So I'm just saying that the ongoing argument of whether or not Director Zach is a Spike is defined by the fact that he has done that multiple times to people.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
you sound a little salty.
I am super salty.
Salt count +1.
It's not
Salt
a Timmy
count
thing.
A card that says 4 mana, blow up 4 things is not a Timmy thing.
I love that card though. It just it's big and splashy.
It is.
It's tough to cast though. Gosh, I had it most of our game, but there's never an enchantment to cast it on. I was like, dang.
All right, so with that, we are going to move into the outro.
Move on.
And I hope you guys have some additional insights. Please put in the comments anything that you have of how either tips on how to identify different psychographic profiles or how you deal with them when you're sitting at the table with them.
Or how you use them, like tools.
I mean, that's...
Are you telling our viewers to use people?
I'm not saying don't. Hey, you know what the best removal spell is? Somebody else's removal spell. I love it when they use
full
them.
disclaimer, you don't use people. It's bad.
It's true.
Right.
Actually, the best removal spell is another player.
Wait, are you picking people up and throwing them?
The new Timmy thing is the best way to remove that creature is to kill you as a player.
Yeah, exactly.
It's true.
If it says destroy target player, great.
Baron Von Count.
So moving into our outro, thanks again to Tapped Out for hosting all of our videos. You can check us out there. You can check us out on...
Tapped Out rocks.
Yeah, that's right. You can also check us out on commandercast.com. YouTube, we are streaming every other week on the twitch.tv/the Trinisphere. It's hard for me to get out still. We've just started this.
Working on it.
Yeah.
It's a new thing. We're trying it out.
Yeah, definitely hit us up. Subscribe to YouTube to be entered to win a pack from a recent standard set.
Yep.
And you can follow us on the Facebook and Twitter. You can find me, the Johnny, on Twitter as Squire9999 or on Tapped Out as Squire1. You can find our Timmy
Shannon
at Nikki Bolus on both Twitter and Tapped Out. And Ryan the Spike, you can find as Snapmaster on Twitter and on Tapped Out. I am Ryan Reese. So hit us up.
He's Ryan Reese.
I am
He's
Ryan.
Ryan
I am
Reese.
Ryan Reese.
Ryan Reese, the spike.
Verified.
Yeah,
Verified.
I am.
Like
There's no apostrophe. It's just im Ryan Reese.
Verified. I have a check mark next to my everything.
Whoa.
Look at you. Putting in the information.
Now that.
Do you guys have that gold star on your driver's licenence?
No.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh,
No.
that's a verified stamp. You guys suck.
I have Legally Blind, I think. I don't know.
All right. So until next time, you guys, enjoy, play lots of EDH,
Heck yes.
and let us know how it goes.
Have fun.
Peace.
Always win.